In the year 2147, humanity had spread far beyond Earth. They had built colonies on distant planets and moons, reaching farther into space than anyone thought possible. The stars no longer felt like unreachable dreams. They were destinations. But not everything was peaceful. As humans explored, they met other intelligent beings, some friendly, some cautious, and some hostile. Among these alien races were the Veilith. Tall, slender creatures with shimmering skin that seemed to change color depending on their mood, the Veilith fascinated humans. At first, there was hope for cooperation. Their advanced technology hinted at centuries of progress, and their calm demeanor suggested wisdom. However, over time, it became clear that the Veilith saw humans as inferior. To them, humans were messy, emotional, and weak. Emotions like anger or fear were seen as flaws rather than traits worth understanding. Ethan Carter was one of the diplomats, sent to negotiate with the Veilith. He was a quiet man in his early 40s with short brown hair and sharp blue eyes. His job was to find common ground between humans and the Veilith, but it wasn't easy. Every meeting felt like walking a tightrope. One wrong word could turn a tense discussion into outright hostility. One day, during a particularly difficult negotiation, Kale, the Veilith ambassador, leaned forward slightly, his glowing green eyes fixed on Ethan. "Your kind," Kale said, his voice smooth but cold, "keeps repeating this phrase, please don't make us angry. What does it mean? Are you trying to threaten us?" Ethan took a deep breath. Explaining human emotions to an alien species was never simple. "It's not a threat," he replied carefully. "It's a warning. Humans value peace, but when pushed too far, we fight back. And when we do, we don't hold back." Kyle tilted his head, clearly unimpressed. "You are small compared to many races. Your ships are slower, your weapons weaker. Why should we believe such words from someone so fragile?" Ethan clenched his fists under the table but kept his tone steady. "Because history has shown us what happens when we're forced into a corner. You may think we're weak because we feel things deeply, but those feelings also drive us. Hope, love, courage, they make us stronger than you realize." Kale let out a sound that might have been laughter. It was hard to tell with the Veilith. "Feelings are distractions," he said, dismissively. "They cloud judgment. We have evolved past such trivialities. Perhaps your warnings are nothing more than empty words meant to scare us." The room fell silent after that. Ethan wanted to argue further, to convince Kale that humans weren't just another race to be brushed aside. But he knew better. Arguing wouldn't change anything. The Veilith prided themselves on logic and efficiency. To them, emotions were a weakness, not a strength. Back at his quarters later that evening, Ethan stared out the window at the stars. He wondered if Kale truly understood how dangerous humans could be. Humanity had come so far since its violent past, but remnants of that history still lingered. Hidden beneath layers of diplomacy and progress lay reminders of what happened when humans were pushed too far. Olivia Dawson, a historian stationed nearby, had spent years studying those remnants. She worked in a research facility tucked away on a moon orbiting a gas giant. Her work focused on ancient human conflicts, especially the Great Retaliation, a devastating war fought centuries ago. Few people talked about it anymore, but Olivia knew better than most what humanity was capable of when provoked. On this particular night, Olivia sat hunched over her desk, surrounded by holographic displays filled with data. She had recently uncovered files buried deep within Earth's archives. These files contained information about weapons developed during the Great Retaliation. Weapons so powerful, they had almost destroyed humanity itself. Most were dismantled or lost over time, but some remained hidden, locked away in secret locations across human space. As she scrolled through the documents, Olivia felt a chill run down her spine. The descriptions were chilling. Devices capable of wiping out entire cities in seconds, machines designed to disrupt ecosystems, even experimental tools that manipulated the very fabric of reality. If these weapons still existed, and if they could be activated, they would represent humanity's ultimate trump card. But using them would come at a terrible cost, not just in terms of destruction but also in terms of trust. Revealing such power to the galaxy would shatter the fragile alliances humanity had worked so hard to build. Still, Olivia couldn't ignore the growing tensions between humans and the Vaylith. Something had to give, and soon. She decided to reach out to Ethan. He was one of the few people who might understand the gravity of her discovery. After sending him a secure message, she waited anxiously for his response. When it finally came, she arranged to meet him discreetly aboard a neutral station. When they met, Ethan listened intently as Olivia explained her findings. His expression grew darker with each passing moment. "If what you're saying is true," he said slowly, "then we're sitting on a powder keg. If the Vaylith push us too far, someone will demand we use these weapons. And once we do, there's no going back." Olivia nodded grimly. "That's why I wanted to tell you. You're in a position to warn the Council. Maybe we can avoid this altogether." Ethan sighed heavily. "I'll try, but I don't know how much good it'll do. The Council doesn't want to hear about old weapons or forgotten wars. They're focused on the present. Besides, showing our hand now might only provoke the Vaylith further." "Maybe," Olivia admitted. "But if we don't prepare for the worst, we're playing right into their hands. They think we're weak because we talk about peace instead of war. Letting them keep thinking that could doom us all." Ethan didn't respond immediately. Instead, he gazed out the station's observation window at the swirling colors of the nearby nebula. For a moment, he allowed himself to imagine a future where humans and the Vaylith coexisted peacefully. Then he shook his head. Such hopes felt naive. Now, the Vaylith weren't interested in coexistence, they wanted dominance. "We'll figure something out," Ethan said finally, turning back to Olivia. "For now, keep digging. Find out exactly where these weapons are stored and whether they're operational. If things get worse, and I think they will, we need to be ready." With that, they parted ways. Ethan returned to his duties while Olivia dove deeper into her research. Neither of them realized how quickly events would spiral out of control. Tensions between humans and the Vaylith continued to rise. Border disputes turned into skirmishes, which escalated into full-blown battles. The Vaylith's arrogance blinded them to the possibility that humans might actually pose a threat. After all, humanity's military paled in comparison to theirs, or so they believed. Meanwhile, on a remote mining colony near the edge of human territory, a young pilot named Ryan Mitchell prepared for another routine patrol. Ryan was barely 22, fresh out of training, and eager to prove himself. Little did he know, his life, and the fate of humanity, was about to change forever. Unbeknownst to Ryan, the Vaylith were planning a massive assault on the colony. Their goal was simple: crush any resistance and claim the resources for themselves. To them, it was just another step in their expansion. To the humans living there, it was an existential threat. As the days passed, the stage was set for a confrontation that would alter the course of galactic history. Humanity's warnings had gone unheeded. Now, it seemed, the universe would learn the hard way why humans kept saying, "Please don't make us angry." The days following Ethan's meeting with Olivia were tense. News of escalating conflicts between humans and the Vaylith spread quickly, fueling fear and anger across human colonies. The Vaylith had become bolder, pushing deeper into territories claimed by humanity. Their ships patrolled borders aggressively, and their leaders made demands that grew increasingly unreasonable. It was clear they saw humans as little more than obstacles in their path to expansion. Ethan tried to warn the United Earth Council about the potential consequences of ignoring the Vaylith's aggression. He presented his concerns during a high-stakes meeting held in a secure chamber beneath the council headquarters. Around the circular table sat representatives from various human factions, politicians, military leaders, and scientists, all debating what to do next. "We can't keep backing down," said General Lisa Monroe, her voice firm. "Every time we retreat, the Vaylith take another step forward. They're testing us, seeing how far they can push before we fight back. But fighting isn't the answer," countered Counselor Daniel Ross, a thin man with graying hair. "We don't have the resources to go toe-to-toe with them. Our best chance is diplomacy." Ethan listened silently, waiting for the right moment to speak. When the room finally quieted, he leaned forward. Diplomacy only works if both sides are willing to listen. The Valith aren't interested in compromise. They see us as weak because we've chosen peace over conflict. But there's a line we can't let them cross. If we don't draw it, now they'll keep coming until there's nothing left. His words hung in the air, heavy with implication. Some council members nodded thoughtfully, while others exchanged skeptical glances. No one wanted to admit that war might be inevitable, but the reality was becoming harder to ignore. Meanwhile, on the mining colony near the edge of human space, Ryan Mitchell prepared for another patrol mission. The colony itself was small, consisting of a cluster of domed structures surrounded by barren rock and dust. Its primary purpose was to extract rare minerals used in advanced technology. Though unremarkable in appearance, the colony played a crucial role in supplying resources to nearby human outposts. Ryan climbed into the cockpit of his fighter ship, running through pre-flight checks with practiced ease. He glanced at the holographic display showing the sector map. Nothing unusual appeared, just the usual routes and waypoints. Still, something felt off. Maybe it was the way the other pilots seemed unusually quiet today, or maybe it was the nagging sense that trouble was brewing just beyond the horizon. As Ryan launched into space, joining a squadron of 4 other ships, he couldn't shake the feeling that this patrol would be different. His instincts proved correct when an alarm blared through his comm system moments later. "Unidentified vessels approaching from Sector 7, came the urgent voice of the colony's defense coordinator. "Prepare for engagement." Ryan's heart raced as he scanned the area. Sure enough, several sleek, angular ships emerged from the shadows of a nearby asteroid field. Their designs were unmistakably Valith. Without hesitation, Ryan followed his squad leader's orders, forming a defensive perimeter around the colony. The battle began almost immediately. The Valith ships moved with terrifying speed and precision, firing beams of energy that cut through space like knives. Ryan dodged one attack after another, his hands gripping the controls tightly. Despite his training, fear crept into his mind. These weren't drills. This was real. Lives depended on him staying alive. Around him, chaos erupted. Explosions lit up the darkness as human fighters clashed with the invaders. One of Ryan's teammates screamed over the comm before his ship exploded in a burst of light. Another pilot spiraled out of control, her vessel damaged beyond repair. Ryan gritted his teeth, forcing himself to focus. He couldn't afford to freeze now. For what felt like hours but was likely only minutes, the dogfight raged on. Finally, reinforcements arrived, driving the Valith ships back toward the asteroid field. As the enemy retreated, Ryan exhaled shakily, realizing he was still alive. But the victory was hollow. The colony had suffered heavy losses, both in terms of personnel and infrastructure. Buildings lay in ruins, fires burned unchecked, and survivors wandered aimlessly searching for loved ones. Back on Earth, news of the attack shocked the population. Images of the devastated colony dominated media outlets, sparking outrage and calls for retaliation. Protesters filled the streets of major cities, holding signs that read, "Protect our colonies," and "No more cowardice." The pressure mounted on the council to act decisively. President Laura Hayes addressed the public in a televised speech, her expression grave. What happened today was not just an attack on a single colony. It was an attack on all of humanity, she said. The Valith have shown us who they truly are. They will stop at nothing to dominate our worlds. We cannot allow this to continue. Her words resonated deeply with the people. For too long, humanity had sought peace at any cost. Now it seemed the time for compromise had passed. But even as support for action grew, questions remained. Could humanity stand against the Valith? And if so, at what price? Behind closed doors, Ethan argued passionately for revealing Project Reckoning, a secret initiative designed to activate humanity's most devastating weapons. "We've been holding back for years, hoping diplomacy would work," he told the council. But look where that's gotten us. The Valith won't stop until we show them exactly what we're capable of. Counselor Ross frowned. And what happens afterward? If we use these weapons, every race in the galaxy will see us as monsters. Is that really the legacy we want to leave? It's not about legacy, Ethan shot back. It's about survival. If we don't protect ourselves now, there won't be a future to worry about. The debate dragged on late into the night with tempers flaring and voices rising. In the end, President Hayes made the final decision. She authorized the activation of Project Reckoning, instructing engineers to prepare the Quantum Annihilator, a device capable of obliterating entire fleets in seconds. It was a weapon born out of humanity's darkest days, hidden away as a last resort. Until now. While preparations unfolded, Ryan returned to Earth, hailed as a hero for his role in defending the colony. Reporters swarmed him, eager to hear his story. But Ryan didn't feel like a hero. All he could think about were the faces of his fallen comrades, the screams of civilians caught in the crossfire. He attended memorial services for those lost in the attack, standing quietly among grieving families. Each tear-filled eye reminded him of the stakes involved. Olivia, meanwhile, continued her research into the old weapons. She worked tirelessly, poring over documents and coordinating with engineers tasked with reactivating the Quantum Annihilator. Her nights were sleepless, her meals rushed. Yet she pressed on, driven by a sense of duty. If humanity was going to unleash such power, she wanted to ensure it was done responsibly, and only as a final measure. One evening, as she walked through the facility where the weapon was being assembled, Olivia paused to watch the technicians at work. Massive machines hummed with energy, their components gleaming under harsh lights. The sight filled her with awe and dread. This was humanity's ultimate deterrent, a tool of unimaginable destruction. Would it save them, or destroy everything they had built? Days turned into weeks. Tensions reached a breaking point when the Valith launched a second wave of attacks, targeting multiple colonies simultaneously. Entire populations fled in terror as alien forces descended upon their homes. The United Earth Council declared a state of emergency, mobilizing every available resource to defend against the onslaught. Amidst the chaos, Ethan delivered a final message to Kale, the Valith ambassador. Standing before cameras broadcasting, "Live across the galaxy," he spoke with calm determination. To the Valith leadership, cease your aggression immediately. You have underestimated us once too often. If you continue down this path, you will face consequences beyond your comprehension. Kale watched the transmission from his embassy, his glowing eyes narrowing. To him, Ethan's words sounded like empty threats. The Valith had studied humanity closely, analyzing their weaknesses and vulnerabilities. They believed they understood humans better than anyone. Surely such fragile creatures wouldn't dare challenge a superior race. With arrogance clouding their judgment, the Valith prepared for a decisive strike. A massive fleet gathered near Earth's orbit, poised to deliver a crippling blow to humanity's heart. Unbeknownst to them, the Quantum Annihilator hummed softly in its underground chamber, ready to unleash devastation on a scale never seen before. As the galaxy held its breath, the stage was set for a confrontation that would define the fate of countless civilizations. Humanity's warnings had gone unheeded. Now the universe would learn why humans kept saying, "Please don't make us angry." The Valith fleet loomed above Earth, a swarm of sleek, menacing ships casting shadows over the planet below. Their leaders had chosen this moment to strike, confident that humanity would crumble under their superior numbers and technology. They thought humans were weak, emotional creatures who would beg for mercy rather than fight back, but they were wrong. Deep beneath Mars's surface, engineers worked tirelessly to prepare the Quantum Annihilator. The weapon was enormous, its core glowing with an eerie blue light that pulsed like a heartbeat. It had been designed centuries ago, during humanity's darkest days, a last resort meant to ensure survival when all else failed. Now it was being awakened for the first time in generations. Olivia Dawson stood nearby, watching the team move with urgency. She felt a mix of awe and dread as she stared at the machine. This wasn't just a weapon. It was a symbol of humanity's capacity for destruction. It could end the war in seconds, but at what cost? Would using it make humans no better than the Valeth? These questions haunted her, yet she knew there was no turning back now. Status report. Olivia asked one of the lead engineers, a wiry man named Jacob Cole. He wiped sweat from his brow before answering. The core is stable, Jacob said, his voice steady despite the pressure. We're running final diagnostics on the targeting systems. Once we get clearance, we can activate it. Olivia nodded, though her stomach churned with unease. Activating the quantum annihilator wasn't something anyone took lightly. Its power came from unraveling matter at a subatomic level, reducing anything it touched into nothingness. Even thinking about it made her feel small and insignificant. Back on Earth, Ethan Carter paced anxiously outside the council chamber. Inside, President Laura Hayes and her advisors were locked in heated debate over whether to deploy the weapon. Some argued that firing it without warning would be reckless, while others insisted it was the only way to stop the Valeth once and for all. Ethan didn't agree with either side completely. He understood the risks of using such a devastating tool, but he also knew humanity couldn't afford to hesitate. Every second the Valeth fleet lingered in orbit brought them closer to catastrophe. Finally, after hours of deliberation, President Hayes emerged from the chamber, her face pale but resolute. We're authorizing the activation of Project Reckoning, she announced. Her voice carried both authority and sorrow. Send a message to the Valeth. If they do not withdraw immediately, we will retaliate with force unlike anything they've ever seen. Ethan nodded grimly. Understood, Madam President. He hurried to the communications center, where technicians prepared to broadcast a final warning to the Valeth. When Kale, the Valeth ambassador, appeared on screen, Ethan spoke clearly, leaving no room for misunderstanding. This is your last chance, Ethan said, his tone firm. Withdraw your forces now, or you will face consequences beyond comprehension. Do not mistake our patience for weakness. Kale studied Ethan for a long moment, then let out a sound that might have been laughter. His glowing green eyes narrowed as he responded, his voice smooth and dismissive. You are attempting to intimidate us with empty threats. Your kind does not possess the strength to challenge us. We will proceed as planned. With that, the transmission ended. Ethan clenched his fists, frustration bubbling inside him. He had done everything he could to prevent bloodshed, but the Valeth refused to listen. Now, humanity had no choice but to act. On Mars, Olivia received word that the Council had given the green light. The countdown to activation began. Monitors displayed the positions of the Valeth fleet, their ships clustered dangerously close to Earth's atmosphere. If the quantum annihilator fired now, it would annihilate most, if not all of them, in an instant. Jacob approached Olivia, his expression grim. We're ready, just waiting for your signal. She hesitated, staring at the massive machine before her. For years, she had studied humanity's violent past, uncovering secrets buried deep within history. She had always hoped those lessons would help prevent future conflicts. Instead, here she was, standing at the edge of destruction. Do it, Olivia whispered finally, her voice trembling. Activate the weapon. Jacob nodded and turned to the control panel. His fingers danced across the keys as the machine roared to life. A low hum filled the chamber, growing louder with each passing second. Lights flickered wildly, and the air crackled with energy. Then, with a deafening roar, the quantum annihilator fired. In space, the effect was immediate and catastrophic. A beam of pure energy shot outward, slicing through the Valeth fleet like a blade through paper. Ships exploded in bursts of light, their crews vaporized instantly. Within moments, the once mighty armada was reduced to drifting debris. On Earth, people watched the live feed in stunned silence. No one cheered, no one celebrated. The sheer scale of destruction left everyone speechless. Even Ryan Mitchell, who had fought bravely against the Valeth, felt a chill run down his spine as he saw what humanity was capable of. The Valeth survivors fled, retreating into the depths of space. Those who remained behind sent desperate transmissions, pleading for mercy. But humanity didn't respond. They had shown their power, and now they waited to see how the rest of the galaxy would react. As news of the attack spread, shockwaves rippled across star systems. Alien civilizations that had previously dismissed humans as weaklings now looked upon them with newfound fear and respect. Videos of the quantum annihilator's devastation went viral, sparking debates among scholars, politicians, and ordinary citizens alike. For Ethan, the aftermath was bittersweet. Humanity had won, but at a terrible cost. Millions of lives had been lost in the conflict leading up to this moment, and countless worlds bore scars from years of fighting. Yet amidst the grief, there was resolve. Humanity had proven it could protect itself, even if it meant wielding terrifying power. Ryan returned to active duty, though he struggled with nightmares of the battle. Whenever he closed his eyes, he saw flashes of exploding ships and heard the screams of dying comrades. Counseling helped, but some wounds ran too deep to heal fully. Still, he continued serving, knowing his work mattered more than ever. Olivia threw herself into advocacy efforts. Determined to prevent another tragedy like this from happening again, she traveled across human colonies, speaking at conferences and meeting with leaders. Her message was simple: peace must come before power. Weapons like the quantum annihilator should never be used again unless absolutely necessary. President Hayes faced criticism from both sides. Some accused her of acting too harshly, while others praised her decisiveness. Regardless of public opinion, she focused on rebuilding what had been broken. Diplomatic relations with other species became a top priority, as humanity sought to rebuild trust and establish new alliances. Kyle, the Valith ambassador, disappeared shortly after the attack. Rumors circulated that he had been exiled, or, worse, for his role in provoking humanity. Whatever the truth, the Valith Empire retreated into isolation, licking its wounds and plotting revenge. Despite the victory, many wondered if humanity had crossed a line it could never uncross. By unleashing such devastation, had they become the very thing they feared? Or had they simply done what was necessary to survive? As weeks turned into months, the galaxy slowly began to recover. Trade routes reopened, diplomatic talks resumed, and life moved forward. Yet the memory of the quantum annihilator lingered, a reminder of humanity's potential for both creation and destruction. Ethan often found himself reflecting on the events that led to this point. He remembered the warnings he had given, the pleas for peace that had gone unheeded. In the end, humanity had been pushed too far, forced to reveal its darkest secrets. And now, the universe finally understood why humans kept saying, "Please don't make us angry." The galaxy was quiet after the attack. It wasn't the peaceful kind of silence that comes with calm and understanding. It was a tense, uneasy quiet, like the lull before another storm. Everyone, humans, aliens, and even neutral species, was trying to figure out what had just happened. Humanity's demonstration of power had left an impression no one could ignore. Ethan Carter stood on a balcony overlooking Earth's capital city. The lights below twinkled like stars, but he felt none of their warmth. He had spent years warning others about humanity's limits, and now those warnings had been proven true. But instead of satisfaction, he felt emptiness. The victory was hollow. Too many lives had been lost, too much damage done. Inside the council chambers, President Laura Hayes addressed representatives from various alien civilizations. Word had spread quickly about the quantum annihilator, and now every race wanted answers. Some came seeking reassurance, others demanded explanations, and a few eyed humanity with thinly veiled hostility. To those who question our actions, President Hayes began, her voice steady and clear, "We did not seek this path. We begged for peace, for cooperation, for mutual respect. You ignored us. You pushed us until we had no choice but to defend ourselves." Her words echoed through the chamber, meeting a mix of reactions. Some delegates nodded in agreement, while others shifted uncomfortably in their seats. A representative from the Zarathians, a tall insectoid species known for their neutrality, spoke up. Your actions have shown strength, yes, but they have also shown danger. How can we trust you not to turn such power against us? President Hayes met his gaze without flinching. We do not wish to rule or dominate. We only want to live in peace. If you choose to see us as enemies, then remember this. We warned you. We always warn first. The room fell silent after that. No one dared argue further. Humanity had proven it wasn't bluffing, and the memory of the Valith fleet's destruction still lingered fresh in everyone's minds. Ryan Mitchell sat alone in his quarters aboard the cruiser Solace. His uniform hung loosely on his frame. He hadn't been eating well lately. The nightmares kept coming back, vivid and relentless. In them, he relived the battle at the mining colony, the explosions, the screams, the faces of friends he'd lost. Sometimes he dreamed of the quantum annihilator firing, wiping out entire fleets in seconds. Those dreams left him drenched in sweat and gasping for air. He tried talking to a counselor once, but it didn't help much. How could anyone understand what it felt like to witness both sides of war? The small-scale horrors and the planet-shattering devastation? Still, Ryan stayed on duty. He told himself it was because humanity needed people like him to keep watch, to make sure nothing like this ever happened again. Deep down, though, he wondered if he stayed because running away would feel like betrayal, to his fallen comrades, to himself. One day, during a routine patrol near Earth's orbit, Ryan spotted something unusual on his ship's scanners. At E. First, he thought it was debris left over from the Valith attack. But as he zoomed in, he realized it was a lone Valith vessel, drifting aimlessly. Its engines were dead, its hull scorched and battered. Ryan reported the sighting immediately. Within minutes, a team of engineers and diplomats boarded the ship to investigate. What they found shocked everyone. A single Valith survivor, barely alive. The creature was weak, its shimmering skin dull and cracked. When it saw the humans, it let out a low, rasping sound, a plea for help. News of the discovery reached Ethan, who rushed to the medical facility where the Valith was being treated. Doctors worked tirelessly to stabilize the alien, unsure if their technology was compatible with its biology. Meanwhile, Ethan watched from behind a glass wall, his mind racing. This was the enemy that had slaughtered countless humans. Yet here, it was vulnerable and broken. Eventually, the Valith regained consciousness. Through translators, it spoke haltingly, its voice faint. Why? Save me? It asked. Ethan stepped closer, his expression unreadable. Because killing you won't bring back the dead, he replied. And because maybe it's time we stopped hating each other long enough to talk. The Valith stared at him, its glowing eyes dimmed by exhaustion. For the first time, Ethan saw something other than arrogance or disdain in its gaze. It looked afraid. Olivia Dawson spent most of her days traveling between colonies, giving lectures on the importance of diplomacy and disarmament. She carried holographic recordings of the quantum annihilator's activation with her, showing them to crowds of curious listeners. Her message was simple. Humanity had proven it could destroy, but it should strive to build instead. We showed the universe what we're capable of, Olivia said during one speech, her voice filled with emotion. Now it's time to show them what we're made of. Not just fear and anger, but hope and courage. Let's use this moment to create a better future, not repeat the mistakes of the past. Her words resonated deeply with many, especially younger generations who hadn't lived through the war. They saw Olivia as a symbol of change, someone who believed humanity could rise above its violent tendencies. Inspired by her vision, volunteers joined efforts to rebuild damaged worlds and foster relationships with alien species willing to cooperate. But not everyone shared Olivia's optimism. Critics argued that disarming completely would leave humanity vulnerable. Others claimed the galaxy would never truly accept humans as equals, no matter how hard they tried. Despite the backlash, Olivia refused to give up. She knew change wouldn't happen overnight, but she believed it was possible. One step at a time. Years passed, and slowly, The galaxy began to heal. Trade routes reopened, diplomatic ties strengthened, and new alliances formed. Humanity earned a reputation as a race capable of both great kindness and immense power, a paradox that intrigued many. Some species approached cautiously, eager to learn more about these emotional beings who valued peace but fought fiercely when provoked. Others kept their distance, wary of repeating the Valith's mistakes. Ethan continued serving as a diplomat, though his role evolved. Instead of negotiating treaties, he focused on fostering understanding between humans and aliens. He traveled extensively, sharing stories of Earth's history and listening to tales from distant stars. Over time, he noticed a shift in attitudes. Where once there had been suspicion and fear, there was now curiosity and even admiration. Ryan eventually retired from active duty, unable to shake the weight of his memories. He moved to a quiet farming colony on the outskirts of human space, finding solace in tending crops and watching sunsets. Though he rarely spoke of his experiences, the lessons he'd learned stayed with him. War changed people, but it didn't have to break them. Even in darkness, there was always a chance for light. Olivia's work inspired a movement that spanned galaxies. New organizations dedicated to peacekeeping and conflict resolution sprang up, funded by donations from grateful citizens. Memorials were built to honor those who had died in the wars, serving as reminders of the cost of hatred and the value of unity. As decades turned into centuries, humanity's story became legend. Tales of the quantum annihilator spread far beyond human borders, whispered among alien civilizations as cautionary myths. Parents used them to teach their children about the dangers of underestimating others. Leaders referenced them in speeches about the importance of cooperation, and so the phrase, "Please don't make us angry," took on new meaning. Once dismissed as a plea for mercy, it became a promise, a reminder that humanity had walked the line between creation and destruction, and chosen life. The universe had learned the hard way why those words mattered, and it vowed never to forget. Years had passed since the day humanity unleashed the quantum annihilator. The galaxy was different now, reshaped by the lessons of that fateful moment. New alliances formed, old rivalries faded, and a fragile peace settled over star systems once torn apart by war. But even in times of calm, scars remained, hidden beneath smiles, buried under progress, waiting for the right moment to resurface. Ethan Carter sat in his office on Earth, staring at a stack of reports piled high on his desk. His hair had turned gray at the temples, and lines etched his face, but his eyes still carried the same determination they always had. These days, his work focused less on treaties and more on cultural exchange programs. Humanity's reputation as both creators and destroyers fascinated other species, and many wanted to understand what made humans tick. One report caught Ethan's attention, a request from a distant colony asking for help mediating a dispute between two alien races. The conflict wasn't violent yet, but tensions were rising. Ethan sighed as he read through the details. It seemed like no matter how much time passed, there would always be arguments to resolve, misunderstandings to untangle. Still, he couldn't complain. This was the kind of work he'd dreamed of when he first became a diplomat. He picked up his comm device and called Olivia Dawson. Over the years, their paths had crossed often enough that they'd developed a close friendship. She was traveling, again, this time visiting a newly discovered planet on the edge of explored space. When her holographic image appeared on his screen, she looked tired but happy. "Another lecture tour?" Ethan asked with a smile. Olivia chuckled softly. "Something like that. I've been talking to these folks about sustainable farming techniques. Turns out they've got some ideas we could use back home too." Ethan nodded appreciatively. "Sounds useful. Listen, I need your advice on something. There's a situation brewing out near Alpha Centauri. Two species are arguing over water rights, and it's starting to get ugly." Olivia frowned. "Do you think it'll escalate?" "It might," Ethan admitted. "That's why I'm reaching out. You've spent so much time studying history and human behavior. Any thoughts on how to approach this without making things worse?" She thought for a moment before responding. "Well, first thing is to make sure both sides feel heard. Sometimes all people, or aliens, want is acknowledgement. Second, focus on finding common ground. Maybe they can share resources instead, fighting over them. Ethan scribbled notes as she spoke. Thanks, Olivia, that helps. No problem, she said warmly. Just remember, Ethan, you're good at this. Don't let the weight of everything stop you from seeing the positives. After ending the call, Ethan leaned back in his chair, letting her words sink in. He knew she was right. For every challenge, there was also opportunity. Slowly, he began, drafting a plan to address the water rights issue, determined to prevent another tragedy before it started. Meanwhile, Ryan Mitchell had found a new purpose on the farming colony. The land stretched wide and open around him, dotted with fields of crops that swayed gently in the breeze. Working the soil gave him a sense of control he hadn't felt since the war. Each seed he planted represented hope, each harvest a reminder that life went on. But not everything was easy. Some nights the nightmares returned, dragging him back to the chaos of battle. On those nights, Ryan walked outside and stared up at the stars. They reminded him of how small he was compared to the vastness of the universe, and how connected everyone truly was despite differences. One evening, as he tended to a field of golden grain, a young girl approached him. She was about 10 years old, with bright eyes full of curiosity. Her name was Lily, and she lived with her parents on the colony. She'd taken a liking to Ryan, often tagging along while he worked. "Why do you grow food here?" Lily asked, skipping beside him. "Don't you miss flying ships?" Ryan smiled faintly. "I used to fly ships because I wanted to protect people. Now I grow food because it's another way to help. Everyone needs to eat, right?" Lily tilted her head, thinking, "But isn't growing food boring? Flying sounds fun." "Not really," Ryan replied. "Both jobs are important. Besides, sometimes quiet work is better than loud work." The girl wrinkled her nose. "I guess." As they continued walking, Ryan realized something. Maybe sharing stories like this mattered. Maybe teaching younger generations about balance and perspective could help prevent future wars. From then on, he made an effort to talk to kids like Lily, answering their questions and encouraging them to think beyond themselves. Back in the political sphere, President Laura Hayes prepared for retirement. Her term was coming to an end, and though she'd accomplished much during her leadership, she felt ready to step aside. A new generation of leaders was emerging, eager to shape the future in their own way. At her farewell address, held in a grand auditorium filled with dignitaries and citizens alike, Hayes reflected on the journey humanity had taken. "When I first took office, we were divided, not just among ourselves, but from the rest of the galaxy," she began. "We feared others, and they feared us. But today, we stand united. Not perfectly, but stronger than before." Applause rippled through the crowd, but Hayes raised a hand to quiet them. "This unity didn't come easily. We paid a heavy price for it. But if there's one thing I want you to remember, it's this. Strength isn't measured by weapons or power. It's measured by how we treat each other, how we choose to move forward after hardship." Her words struck a chord with everyone present. Even those who disagreed with her decisions over the years couldn't deny the impact she'd had on humanity's place in the galaxy. As she stepped down from the podium, Hayes felt a sense of relief wash over her. The road ahead wouldn't be smooth, but she trusted that humanity would continue striving for peace, even if mistakes happened along the way. Decades later, historians began documenting the events surrounding the quantum annihilator. Textbooks described it as a turning point in galactic history, a moment when humanity revealed its dual nature, capable of immense destruction, yet driven by ideals of compassion and cooperation. Teachers used the story to teach students about the importance of balance, how power needed wisdom to guide it, how anger required understanding to temper it. In classrooms across the galaxy, children learned about Ethan Carter, whose diplomacy helped bridge gaps between species, Olivia Dawson, whose advocacy inspired movements for peace, and Ryan Mitchell, whose quiet resilience showed that healing came in many forms. Together, their stories painted a picture of humanity, not as conquerors or victims, but as complex beings, navigating a complicated universe. Even the Valith, once humanity's greatest adversaries, eventually re-emerged from isolation. Their empire was smaller now, humbled by defeat, but they sought dialogue rather than domination. Though trust took time to rebuild, tentative friendships formed, proving that even the deepest wounds could heal given patience and effort. And so, the phrase, "Please don't make us angry," lived on, not as a threat but as a lesson. It served as a reminder of humanity's capacity for both creation and destruction, a warning to tread carefully in a universe filled with wonder and danger. The stars above shone brighter than ever, witnesses to a story still unfolding. Humanity had proven itself resilient, flawed yet hopeful, determined to leave a legacy worth remembering. As long as people remembered the past, they believed the future could shine even brighter.